Are you interested in making a garden that requires no weeding and no watering? We've trialed this method in a couple of locations now, and we're making another garden like that this year. Come and see how we do it. Welcome back to the Hobby Homestead. Today, we're preparing a big new garden space at what I call the Hobby Homestead Extension, my mom's place, which is just 10 minutes down the road from our Suburban homestead. This is my favorite way to prepare a new in-ground garden space. It's called sheet mulching. We layer cardboard and wood chips and let it sit for a couple of seasons. I like to use sheet mulching like this as garden pathways too, so you get the benefits of sheet mulching, which is like no weeding, no watering, and improved soil quality, while still leaving yourself some open soil to plant into. That's what we'll do in this new garden. So in about a month, I'm going to be pulling aside some of the mulch and cutting away a strip of cardboard and planting in that open soil. So today I'm working on the 2026 no-till potato trial patch. Last year we did it on the other side of the garden there and it worked great. We loved the results, we loved the process, and so we were really excited to do the trial again this year. This trial is actually funded by the Ecological Farmers Association of Ontario. So we grow the potatoes and then we take weights at the end of the season and we send them all the data. They can help determine across a lot of different farms in Ontario if this is actually a viable option for growing your potatoes without tilling the ground. Now, the reason why you don't want to till your soil if you are interested in farming in an ecological way is that there is a lot of important structure in your soil once it has sat for years and years and years, and those mycelial networks build up in the soil. That's the fungi that live in the soil naturally, and also the microorganisms are all busy at work in there in that soil with their happy little ecosystem. And when you till that soil, you're disturbing all those networks, you're breaking the soil structure, and you're actually releasing carbon into the atmosphere as well, because carbon gets stored deep in the soil as long as you don't disturb it. So the reason we really love this no-till is not only because of carbon sequestration, keeping it out of the atmosphere, but it also just gives us excellent soil health. The soil holds on to moisture so much better, which means it also holds on to nutrients so much better. And when we build up our soil like this to make a new garden space, rather than tilling into it, we're adding important organic matter. This field was a conventionally grown cornfield for many, many years. So we're adding all that organic matter through the wood chips, and the soil ends up just beautiful and loamy and fluffy and dark at the end of the day. Well, at the end of a couple of years of doing this. Here comes another load of wood chips. Now, you may be thinking, she's using a tractor. This just isn't relevant to gardening and growing potatoes at home. Well, we also did this at home in the suburbs, not with potatoes, but we did grow our little food forest in a method that was the same as this. We prepped the ground by laying down cardboard and then lots and lots of wood chips. And we were able to plant our perennials right away in that, so our fruit trees. And then after a couple of years, that all broke down, and now it's beautiful soil we can plant anything into. And yes, we hauled with a wheelbarrow and a shovel instead of a tractor, which is a lot of work, but again, it was totally worth it. And thankfully, my mom has a tractor, so we're able to scale up and do it this way here. So this garden space right here that we're prepping new this year is about 20 feet by 12 feet, and that'll be enough for a few rows of no-till potatoes. But we're also going to be doing a control this year. Last year we just did all no-till and took our weights. But this year we're going to do a couple of rows of traditional potatoes where we would till the ground, plant our potatoes in the dirt, and then we hill it up with the dirt throughout the growing season. And I'm not sure how it's going to go because this is my mom's place. This is the Hobby Homestead extension. So I drive 10 minutes to get out here. Not that big a deal, but with work and kids and everything, I don't get out here to help in the garden as much as I should, which is why the no-till and the deep mulching works so well, because we didn't have to weed or water once last year with those potatoes, and they did beautifully. If you till the soil, you plant your potatoes in the traditional way, just in the dirt, you're going to have to weed and water. So we'll see how they do. I have to be a little bit on top of it because I don't want to mess with the trial and say like, well, the tilled potatoes did terribly compared to the no-till, but really it's because I never weeded or watered. So I still have to take care of them, respond to the plant's needs, keep it weeded. It's going to be more work to do it this way, but I really, really want to see how that's going to turn out. And when we till, because this soil really has nothing in it, when it was a cornfield, they just applied nitrogen fertilizer to the field. It disappears immediately. So there's no nutrient in this soil for our potatoes. So we will be tilling in some compost. And also to make it equal, when I make the rows between the wood chips here for the no-till potatoes, I'm going to apply a light layer of compost to the top of the soil. We're just not going to till it in. So both beds will have an application of compost, just in different ways. Now, perhaps the most important thing to know if you are going to create a new garden space using this method, this sheet mulching with cardboard and wood chips, is that you need to overlap that cardboard very carefully, which is why I really recommend going to an appliance store and asking if you can rifle through their recycling, because those boxes make it so much easier. If you just try to save up your own boxes from parcels delivered to your home, they're going to be usually a lot smaller. And when you open them up, there's those slits in them where the box sort of folds down to make a bottom and a top. And you do not want any of those slits in the cardboard because the weeds will grow up through those. You really need to double layer your cardboard if you're going to do that so that none of those gaps exist. We didn't know about the appliance store trick when we first did it in our backyard in the suburbs. And I gathered a bunch of boxes from friends, and we definitely were able to get all our boxes for free. It wasn't too big of a deal, but they were smaller. And in the places where I was not diligent about overlapping, that is where the weeds grew through, particularly along the edges. So I would overlap fairly well in the center of the space we were prepping. But along the edges, I would just have like a cardboard box opened up along the edges. And that's where those seams from the flaps of the cardboard were. And so that made it extra easy for weeds to grow up through. And when you're doing your edges, you want to leave a lip of cardboard rather than letting the wood chips just spill over the side. Not only does that just help keep it a little tidier, straighter edges with your wood chips, but it also prevents the weeds from just climbing up and growing in. Now, this cardboard, particularly because it was wet when we laid it down and covered it, it will decompose over this summer. I chose to make more work for myself later and less work right now because the last time we made the pathways And we did not just lay down a whole field of cardboard and wood chips like this. We just laid down cardboard and wood chips in pathways between where we were going to plant the potatoes. It was a lot of work at this stage with the tractor trying to line it up right. If you're on a smaller scale with a wheelbarrow, it's probably going to be a lot easier to just make pathways with cardboard and wood chips. But for us, I think it's going to be easier for me right now, at least, to just mulch this whole area, sheet mulch the whole thing. It's going to sit for a month anyway before we plant, and that's going to sort of protect the soil through the month of April. And then I'm going to have to pull the wood chips aside out of the rows where I want to plant the potatoes. And at that point, I'll probably have to cut the cardboard, but I bet you it's going to be largely broken down already just in 1 month from now, but we can see together. Here comes our last load of wood chips. I'm out of cardboard. Ideally, I would have made it go just a little bit further over, mostly because why not just prep the area as a garden? But this is all the space we need for the potatoes, so it worked out. So now that I've just said that we had enough cardboard and we're all set, I am thinking that I want to add a border layer of cardboard and wood chips so that it just reduces the weed pressure on our tilled potato trial rows. Yeah, I'm nervous about this. It's almost worth covering this whole area that we're going to till with some sort of tarp just to reduce our bed prep work in another month from now. Because all of a sudden the weeds are just going to jump into life. But we'll see how it goes. I wanted to show you also that my mom has used this method for most of her garden. So this is where she has her raspberries, these trellises here. So we did the same thing. We have sheet mulch here. So there was cardboard and there was wood chips, and she just planted in soil in a little gap between the cardboard and wood chips. We also did the same thing in that gazebo there and all around the chicken coop. It just means that you don't have to weed your garden, and it retains moisture like crazy, so you don't have to water either. All right, I can see my mom's trying to do some more garden prep over there, so I'm gonna head over and give her a hand. While I'm here, I guess we might as well keep going with this whole no-till, deep mulching bed prep stuff, because I still have to finish making the low tunnels for our brassicas. This was last year's no-till potato plot. And all this straw was what mulched the potatoes, and there were the wood chip pathways in between them, but it is pretty much broken down at this point. The straw is left, and that's a good thing because we actually want the straw to mulch our brassicas, because I do not want to come and weed or water our broccolis and cauliflowers. And I'm putting hoops on these for two reasons. The first is to help pre-warm the bed with these row covers. But the real reason is because we have insect netting to put over our brassicas. We need these brassicas under netting because otherwise they will be just covered in those green cabbage loopers. The pests love brassicas. They love cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage. So we're going to keep them covered all growing season. And that means it's really a hands-off thing to grow our broccoli and cauliflower this way. But it's hands-off throughout the season. You still have to put in the work at the beginning of the season to prep everything for this. So right now I'm just pulling away last year's mulch. I'm measuring out my rebar that I cut earlier so that I have something to hook those pieces of conduit over. Now, the only thing we had to buy for this year was the rebar. I looked and looked on Facebook Marketplace, couldn't find any. And the insect netting, which we will use again and again and again. But the conduit I actually got on Facebook Marketplace, and it was super duper cheap, and I made a garden friend because of that purchase. It was something that he also used in agriculture. So without further ado, I better get back to work. Where's the rake? Where's everything I need? Tape measure. Oh, it's cold. Why didn't I bring gloves or a real coat? All right, first, we're gonna come in 4 feet this way because our stakes are going in every 4 feet. And the bed itself, where we are growing the brassicas, is going to be 3 feet wide with a 2-foot pathway in between. I took my mic off because you do not need to hear me sniffling away. It's cold out. Bear with me. I just wanted to mention something. As I'm moving all this straw aside out of the rows where we will plant our brassicas, I'm noticing there's just a little bit of weed here, like just the odd piece of grass. That's just the straw having seeds in it that have germinated this spring. This was not an issue for us last year when we were growing with this straw as a mulch. It's not going to be an issue this year. You may have heard that mulching with straw is not ideal because it has weed seeds in it. I mean, hay, straw, all that stuff will have seeds in it that can germinate. But the beauty of mulching like this is in the difference in where the seeds germinate. So if you have weedy soil just without a mulch, those seeds, the weed seeds, are coming up from deeper within the soil. And often that soil will be less loose and fluffy if you haven't mulched it and kept organic matter piled on. And so it's harder to weed because the roots are further down. They're probably more widespread through the soil before you actually see greenery coming up that you can pull out. But if you're just weeding out of your straw mulch or out of your hay mulch, the weeds just pluck right out of the top. You don't need a tool. It's literally like they've germinated in the straw itself, which is so easy to pull out. And they don't usually survive a summer like that because the roots are not embedded in the soil if you have a thick layer of mulch. They're just growing out of the straw. And as that top layer of straw dries out, so do the roots. And so it just doesn't work out for that weed. So that is why it really isn't an issue worrying about seeds, weed seeds in your hay or straw mulch. You just have to pluck them out of the surface of the straw. Really not that big a deal. Where did I leave it? Did I bury it? Where did I put the sledgehammer? It'll be buried in the straw. there we have it. That's all we had to do for bed prep. It took me 2 hours. So we put in the whole potato bed, which I will end on. And we've also finished now. Oh, I still have to rake the straw. Oh well, that can wait because I actually don't have plastic row cover for that bed yet. So we're gonna do the 2 covers for now, let that soil warm, and then in just a few weeks, like in 3 weeks, we plan to be planting our brassicas out into this bed. Brassicas are cold hardy, so you can put them out even when you still have risk of frost, light freezes, they'll be okay. And it just benefits them even more, keeps them happier, less stressed out. If you can put a cover on them of some sort, it could be a fleece cover, so like a frost blanket. The geese don't like that I'm talking. Sorry, geese. I disturbed their bath. My mom has a wetland here, and then there's 2 big ponds further back. So the wildlife she gets here is just remarkable, even after 3 years. This is the 3rd year since the wetland and ponds have been in, and just an explosion of wildlife. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I'm always getting distracted by wildlife. So these beds are now prepped and ready. All I need now are the seedlings to hurry up and grow. I had seedlings started in February that would have been perfect right now to put out under the cover, but I had a fungus gnat issue in my seed starting area. Actually in my whole house. Fungus gnats are really trying to drive me out of house and home. And they killed off 2 trays now of brassicas. And I'm doing everything I can to get rid of these fungus gnats. But the problem is I'm able to eliminate them from my seed starting stuff, from the soil. My sticky traps show that I have barely any fungus gnats left. And then they're reproducing elsewhere in my house, like in my drains. And then they find their way back to the seedlings. So the problem is like a huge problem in my home. They're in the windowsills. We have too much condensation in our windows. And so there's like fungus gnats laying in all the windowsills. It's too much for me. Can't think about it. Anyway, most of my seedlings are fine because I'm able to stay on top of it with mosquito dunks, watering with that. That's Bacillus thuringiensis, it's bacteria. And I'm using a nematode that is working, but you have to keep at it. And fans, obviously, on the seedlings all day to dry off that soil. So I'm doing everything I can, and it is working in the seedlings, but there's this cycle because they just keep coming back from other parts of my house. Anyway, it killed off two successions of brassicas so far. I have a 3rd try going strong. I've actually just started them outside in my trays, not even in my house, and that has been working well. So just might have to do that. Keep it in my little covered deck greenhouse, like it's just the little shelving unit with a plastic covering on it. That's been working for starting things safely outside. The only things that I have to start inside are the frost sensitive things like tomatoes and peppers. Anyway, this is our potato patch all ready to go. I will be cutting in here, digging the wood chips away in about a month and making 2-foot wide planting rows. There will be 4 planting rows here, 3 or 4. And then we'll do 2 tilled rows off to the side there as a control. I'm getting pretty excited. And this is just what we're doing at my mom's place. The brassicas and the potatoes are kind of my thing here, my experimentation, my spreading my wings and getting more space to grow. But of course, back home in the suburbs, in our backyard garden, there's tons to do in the garden already. And speaking of which, I better get back to work, better get home, finish up my desk job so that I can get out into our garden, spread some soil. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you'll come and grow with us.